This could be a similar thing with funding, is that it's probably good for you to struggle through finding your initial clients, finding the funding.
All right, welcome to Hack to the Future with Kyle Roof. I am Kyle Roof, and today with me is our guest, Kevin Stubbs, the co-founder and CEO of PubGENIUS. Welcome, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kevin, I want to go all the way back to the beginning of your LinkedIn resume. And you started off as a Flash game developer. I think my first question is, were you a massive fan of Homestar Runner? Were you like, when you saw that, like, I got to do this, this is my career?
Wow, that's taking me back. I didn't expect that question. I think I was, Trogdor was from Homestar
Yes.
Runner, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, at that time growing up, it was the thing to do in school was to share Flash games with each other, right? Play RuneScape, play Flash games, helicopter games, stuff like that. So it was kind of a golden era for an indie web game developer. So
Right on.
kind of a lucky way to get in.
It's crazy to me. I think you stopped developing around 2013. Like 7 years later, Flash isn't even supported anymore. That's crazy to me that you could be how big it could be, and you could actually be developing games in it as this is how you're making money. And in that span of time, it's gone. Like it really doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That must have been kind of, maybe you saw the writing on the wall and transitioning into more of a full stack developer to get a few more languages under your belt.
Well, yeah, my game development tenure was quite short-lived because, like I mentioned, it was popular thing to do during school, high school, middle school. So I actually started writing and selling Flash games when I was still in high school. So it wasn't really seeing the writing on the wall, but more like getting into a more traditional, quote unquote, career path because I was lucky enough to grow up in Redmond, the Seattle area where Microsoft is located. And so I made these games and sold a couple of them, not for that much money, but it was a lot for me at the time. And it was something that you can kind of prove to somebody that you just meet in that area that you can actually code, you have some ambition, you're self-motivated, stuff like that. That was lucky to do that at that age. I was lucky to meet somebody from Microsoft that had the ability to hire people at his discretion. And so during high school, I actually was starting to work on the Windows Automotive team, working on, I think it was called Ford Sync, the second one at that time.
Okay.
So that's and that wasn't web development either. Web development actually came later, even though that's mostly what I'm doing now. That was C++ for embedded platforms at that time.
Very cool. So then you did work for Microsoft for a bit, and then you transitioned into a CTO role with a company. And then from there, that's when you launched PubGENIUS. Is that right?
Yeah, this CTO role was a small startup that I co-founded. So it was, they need a technical guy. Let's call it CTO. It's not really that much of a big deal. We had Amazon as a customer, actually, for that startup. And it was something in the, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called now, but basically that you buy something from Amazon and you have a contractor come out to install it, some electrical work or whatever. And we were verifying licenses because they had a team in South America that was doing that manually. We said, well, we're in the same Seattle area as you. How about we just write something automated? Why do people have to do it manually? And they paid us for it. And then they decided, yeah, we'd rather just do it manually. And then the other companies that were offering the same thing as them that would need the same software, we didn't get traction. So we just said, let's find something else to do.
And then that leads into PubGENIUS. When you started that, I've started a few companies myself, and I kind of have this thing. It's like you get the idea and you get the people on board, and you decide, okay, we're going to go for this, and then it's kind of like a now what moment. How do we get clients? What are we going to do now? What was it like kind of getting that first client? Did you already, through your contacts before, have things lined up, or were you just jumping in and pounding the pavement, so to speak, and trying to find something?
Yeah, that I don't know that this is necessarily something that we did right, but what we did for both the that Amazon startup, all right, the one we had Amazon as a client, plus this initially what we started PubGENIUS as, is we only started it once we had somebody at least verbally committed to buying what we want to sell, whether that's a service or a
Okay.
product. And I think that, I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but basically we had this validation that somebody wants to pay us for some work, and we
Yeah.
kind of ignored all the other research. Like, well, if one person wants to pay us, surely there's more business behind that. And so we jumped in to everything else because some of the initial obstacles were so easy for us. But I think, and this could be a similar thing with funding, is that it's probably good for you to struggle through finding your initial clients, finding the funding. The reason for I'm saying that about finding funding is because you have to prove your idea to investors. Whereas if you have an idea and you self-invest, you can easily kind of wave your hand to get rid of some problem. Like, oh yeah, there's maybe nobody wants this, but I think it's a great idea, so I'm just going to do it. So I think having obstacles in your way is probably a better indicator that you're going to succeed than having an easy start.
Well, sure. That also shows you market fit. When you're saying going out and getting that client, they're going to kind of direct you like, this is what we're looking for, and you're like, oh, that's what we want to offer, kind of thing. It can kind of help you guide in terms of like the direction that the company can go or the services or products you're going to offer for sure. When you actually so if people are unfamiliar with PubGENIUS, can you give us the 30-second elevator on what you guys do?
Yeah, so what we do today is operate as a development agency, so full stack app product development, and sometimes as a venture studio, which means that we will partner with some startups for a mix of cash and equity instead of just cash.
How's that work out? Well, the equity part.
In terms of success or the
Yeah.
it's mixed. It's definitely mixed. We're it's something that we're sort of doing as a mistake, let's say, or just by chance. It's not something that we're going out and looking for companies to partner
Okay.
with like this. That is a model that some venture studios do, and I assume they're doing it successfully. But for us, it's more like maybe we have some connections to somebody that we already know, basically, and we know their track record. We believe in their idea, and we have extra resources. So, as a development agency, you don't really want to have everybody at 100% utilization. Absolutely everybody's working on a project right now. It means that you should probably hire more people. So, ideally, you are going to have some idle resources anyway. So if you know somebody that you believe in that has a product and you can just turn your idle resources onto this instead of just sitting on their hands, then it's better than nothing. Ideally, yeah, you'll make a lot of money out of it, but in the worst case, you're in the same situation that you had before, that you have developers spending time and not producing anything. So
Sure.
I think for us, it's been worth the risk. We haven't really seen any success from it, but we're pretty optimistic about some things that we're doing now.
Oh, that's very cool. I think that's always the dream when you're running an agency is to, oh, we could get a piece of this. You probably only need a handful to take off, but I think that's an extremely important point that you made, that you've got developers that aren't at 100% utilization. They have time, so you're paying for it anyway, and it makes it a much safer risk in jumping in on that. I think that's a very valid point and a very strong way of looking at it. In the times that we've done in agency work where it's been a percentage, it's really never worked out. But I think to your point, we were at 100% utilization with our people. We're kind of taking it on as another client, if you will, not necessary, which then is taking away from something else that could be revenue generating, rather than just filling time on somebody that wasn't doing anything anyway. I love that.
Yeah.
Getting into the fun facts of Kevin, about Kevin portion of our show, I understand that you are a polyglot. And a polyglot, I think the benchmark is 4 or 5 languages that you're proficient in. Is that right?
I have no idea. You can write anything that you want on LinkedIn. So I love learning languages. I
Okay.
speak fluently English. It's my native language. Italian and Russian. Right now, I'm studying Turkish. I'm staying in Turkey right now for a couple more weeks, and then I have to move on for the visa limit. And in the past, I've also studied Georgian, German. I tried a little bit of Korean, but that was very difficult, and I gave up a little bit, but I hope to come back to that eventually.
I gave Korean a pretty solid year and a half, almost 2 years. At the end of that year and a half, I really couldn't even talk about the weather, and it was pretty disappointing. And I had to
It's
give it up.
it's very, very difficult. My problem with Korean is I, this is the first time I ran into this with a language where I can kind of do everything. Like picking up the Korean alphabet is not difficult. It takes time, of course. But my problem is that when somebody says something in Korean, I can't repeat it back to them.
Hmm.
So it was very discouraging because there just are some basic phrases like goodbye that I was just not able to say, to pronounce correctly. And I thought, I'm at that time I was in Korea for 2 or 3 months, and I thought I'm gonna leave soon anyways. Probably should work on something else. Yeah, it's like even Georgian, which has some very unique sounds. It's you can kind of pronounce some words, like the ones that are very difficult. You can pronounce them back more or less in an understandable way. And Korean was just like
Now, the other
too
tricky
much for
part
me.
about Korean is that verbs are conjugated based on age, the person that you're speaking to. And you conjugate if they're older, you use one ending. If they're younger, you use another
Hmm.
ending. So if somebody spoke a word at you, one of the tricky parts is you really can't speak it back to them because they're a different age than
Yeah.
you. And so you're going to have to conjugate it in a different way. So it has the root part of, say, the verb, but it's going to have a different ending, which always makes it a lot of
Those are
fun. And some people get insulted if you use the wrong one.
the those are the honorifics, right?
Yeah,
Is
so
that what it's
like if
called?
you're speaking to someone older, you'd use an imnida at the end, and if you're speaking to someone younger, you'd use yo. And then there are actually
Mm.
two other fun ones just that they throw in for the mix, just to make it even easier.
And
Um,
some of the words are totally different, not just the ending, right? If for the royalty level or whatever the
oh yeah, I
highest
didn't
ones
even
are.
bother. Couldn't even wasn't even close to that. But I can tell you that goodbye depends on whether you're leaving or you're staying. If
Okay.
if the person is staying, you would say if you're leaving, they're staying. It'd be 안녕히 계세요. And if they're going, it's 안녕히
Ikase.
가세요. But
Ikase. Hmm.
also, just to add for the fun, just adding to the fun, it's not just goodbye. It depends on object permanence almost. uh, Getting into your growth at PubGenius, you've had tremendous growth. I think what I saw again, if LinkedIn is to be believed, you've had over 100 MVPs, which is phenomenal in what, like 5, 6 years or something like that.
Yeah, we initially started as an ad tech startup, and we
Okay.
pivoted into the being a development agency maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
So that would be in the last 3 years.
That's unbelievable. Do you still do some of the ad stuff, or is that you've completely pivoted away, or is there like some mainstay clients you still have that on, or you maybe use it as some lead generation, or is that pretty much gone and you've completely pivoted over into just development?
Yeah, we do a little bit of ad tech or monetization work for two clients, and then the rest have moved on to former competitors. Um, but the one interesting advertising client that we have is a large, I guess it would be an affiliate network in a way. They're basically driving as much traffic as they can, qualified traffic, to websites where people would sign up for financial information. And the interesting thing that we've been able to do with them is take the monetization knowledge that we know from before, as when we were a fully ad tech company, and mix it with what we've learned as a development focused company. Because, as you know, the page speed matters a lot for revenue. So when they're driving almost $1 million of top line revenue per month on these sites, very what seems like a small improvement to the page speed actually results in a very noticeable improvement to their bottom line profits. So by combining these two things that we're very experienced in, we're able to deliver something that's very unique. Another agency wouldn't really be able to deliver the same kind of advice, expertise, and execution as we
I
can.
love that. Are there any MVPs that stick out in your mind as notable, like something that was pretty cool, or maybe something that was challenging and you overcame, or anything like that?
Yeah, one that I'm particularly happy about working with is Amy, AMIE.so. They're a German-based startup, VC-backed, and we helped them launch their beta a couple years ago. This was in our first year as a development studio, and I just love working with that founder, with Dennis, but also, they're covered by TechCrunch. They were featured in the App Store a month or two back when they fully launched publicly. Um, it just brings me a lot of pride to have worked on these startups because and it's sort of what we started to base our opinions on, how, like, who we want to work with, what kind of projects we want to work on, is that we really enjoy working on the high quality projects, working with clients that care about the quality of the code, but also how it is for users, that they want to create something perfect rather than, and this was just everywhere in the ad tech space, people spinning up the worst quality sites possible because everything for them is about the margins. You want to make it as cheaply as possible, but it still works so that you can make your money. Whereas outside of that space, you can find a lot more people that care about quality. So, we have a limited time to be working on things in our lives, but also just you're not probably going to be working on in the same role forever. So during these years that you're doing this, I'm speaking as like a developer or an agency owner or something like that. I think you'll feel a lot better focused on the quality projects, focus on working with people that you enjoy working with, that care about that quality, and so on. So yeah, we saw this glimpse into what that world is like, and we're like, we want to find as many like clients and projects like this as possible. So it's a very long answer to a short question.
No, but that's fantastic because you think about your perfect client, and you might not know what that is until you actually have that perfect client. And then that's something that you can base off of, like, okay, this went so well. What are the things? Why did this go so well? And it was what they wanted, the quality they wanted, the product that they wanted, the type of people that you're working with, the founders over there on their side, and who you're dealing with. And then you can really kind of get some punch points out of it, like, okay, this is the criteria, and these are perfect clients. And if you can then guide yourself towards that, life is a lot better. Yeah, I love that. So I think one of the things that you attribute to your growth is actually in client acquisition, and something that we discussed before we started recording was that you built some internal software for that. We don't need the secret sauce on the software, but just conceptually, like, what in your mind, and I think I know the answer. I think this is kind of what you do, but the optimization of tasks is, I think, part of what you drive towards, and that maybe was kind of the genesis of, we can build some software internally to handle portions of our lead generation. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
How does that begin? Like, what's step one? If somebody wanted to, I think we all have the idea of, I'd love a piece of software that helped me get leads. But like, if you want to build even just building software in general, what would be like a step one towards getting something that is viable, like, and could be used internally for some aspect of growth?
Yeah, I guess you would want to separate that into two categories. One is you're solving a problem you already have, and it becomes at least if you're a developer, you will understand a very clear path on how to execute on that. And then the other category is, I have an idea, and you're trying to figure out how to start to build that idea. So it's sort of more of an aspirational thing rather than fixing a problem that you already have. So for this lead generation, it's solving a problem that we already have. So we get most of our leads from Upwork, and you have to look through a lot of job postings in order to find ones that match, especially us, because we're targeting, it goes back to that quality thing, targeting people that care about the quality, are willing to pay the prices that they need to pay for us and stuff like this. It's a small segment of people that are on Upwork that we actually want to apply for, which just means that we have to make more applications. That's very time consuming, and some people enjoy doing that more than others. I don't really enjoy writing these proposals. So, I built some things that can make myself a lot faster, less copy and pasting. You're able to spend more of your time to customize what you're writing for that person, to tailor it. And then it was thinking, well, how do we make this something that other people can do? So how do we distribute the workload, or how do we scale this up so that we could hire somebody in the future whose whole job is to manage these proposals, so some kind of business development manager. So we just started to build that software along those lines of we want to do what we're already doing faster, more efficiently. We want to understand the data better of how effective our proposals are. So what there's so many different things that you could apply for on Upwork. Are you getting a lot of traction for your mobile development proposal? Getting traction for your Web3 proposals? Is your close rate for one much higher than another? And why? Is there something that's wrong in your proposal? Is your pricing out of like not matching what the market is? So just some insights from data that the Upwork UI doesn't provide to you. So we can take that data for ourselves and analyze it internally. And then also thinking about how do we scale up the agency so that you can easily replace somebody. We're going to be running this agency for a long time. Let's make sure that Kevin doesn't have to write proposals every day for the next 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So making it easier to train somebody new to come in and do as good a job as the original person was doing it. Moving that institutional knowledge into the software instead of passing it on from one person to another.
I really like that. I totally agree that I think the best software ideas are the ones that probably have the best chance for success, are the ones where you're solving a problem that you have, because then you understand the ins and outs of it. But then kind of taking it a step farther and looking at some data-driven points to make your own software better. Like kind of that analysis that you would be doing maybe by hand or even intuitively, putting it into that fix, if you will, then providing yourself a better product. I imagine once you get the point that you're happy with it, that you can actually use it successfully, that's the point that it can take on a life of its own and be, you can surely use it internally for forever, but then it could also potentially be offered to the public as well.
We're planning to do that once we're really happy with it. We're planning to see if other teams or even individuals would want to use it. I know a couple people recently asked me for advice on how to start using Upwork, like what should they put for the proposals, what tips do I have, and stuff like that. And so I see the potential for the software to help anybody that's using Upwork be more effective at it, especially people that have a lot that they need to organize at once, like big agency, as well as people that are new to it that haven't established a process that's effective yet.
That's a great point as well. I think a lot of people think of a platform like Upwork as a race to the bottom. But if you're doing it this way, you can actually find those high quality, high ticket clients. They exist, they are there. It takes a little extra work, and it's something that can cut through a lot of the noise and find those clients for you. I love that. Awesome. Well, Kevin, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I really appreciate you being on. I imagine it's a beautiful day coming up in Turkey for you.
It's quite nice out.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. So, Kevin, I appreciate you being on. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Hack to the Future, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.